What if the person who saved an entire city project wasn't a politician, an investor, or a lawyer, but a teenage girl in a hoodie? In this gripping, true-style narrative, an undercover lie meets an unexpected truth, and the most powerful man in the room is forced to listen. This is not just a story about corruption. It's about courage, the kind that doesn't come with titles or offices, but with conviction and clarity. You're about to witness how one voice, small but fearless, took down a multi-million-dollar scam from the inside. Stay with us until the end, because what starts with a whispered warning ends with a new beginning. For an entire city, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful real-world stories that deserve to be told. It was supposed to be a victory, the kind of morning where hands get shaken, contracts get signed, and champagne chills on standby. Inside the 32nd floor conference room of Kinross Ventures, the air buzzed with quiet confidence. Victor Langston, CEO, iron-pressed shirt, reputation polished to a shine, held a sleek fountain pen above a dotted line. He was moments from closing on the largest infrastructure development in Atlanta this decade. Glass towers. Public transit integration. Billboards called it Tomorrow's South Side. The price tag? $482 million. The projected return? Double. He paused just long enough to take in the admiring gazes around the table. Then from the back of the room, a voice cut through the polished silence. Stop right there. That development is a scam. Heads turned. The pen froze. Victor's smile didn't vanish. It shattered. Standing in the doorway was a teenage girl, young, probably 17. She wore a sun-faded hoodie from Benjamin E. Mays High, a visitor badge swinging. Gently from her lanyard, hair in a tight braid. One hand clenched a plastic binder to her chest. The other pointed at the documents in front of Victor. Her voice was clear, not loud. Not apologetic, but clear, like someone stating a fact. That land, Parcel 4C, was reclassified 2 months ago. It's under federal environmental protection. If you sign that, you're signing a lie. No one spoke. Not at first. Not the legal counsel. Not the PR director. Not Anika Shaw, Kinross's COO and Victor's most trusted advisor, who looked like she'd seen a ghost. Silence thickened. Then, like clockwork, the scoffing began. "Is this a joke?" said one of the developers. "She's just a kid," muttered another. Victor stood slowly. He was tall, polished, used to being the calm in the storm. He adjusted his cufflinks. "Who are you?" he asked. The girl didn't blink. "Zaria Cruz. My mom works in the cafeteria on floor 10. I help her after school sometimes. 2 nights ago, I saw that contract left on a print tray." She stepped forward. I cross-checked the parcel number against the city's zoning portal. She placed the binder on the table. "Pages 3 and 5, you're building on protected wetlands." Victor stared at her. At the binder. At the words scrawled in pen on the front. "City land use, do not ignore." Anika made a move to intervene. Victor held up a hand. "No," he said quietly. "Let her finish." Zaria flipped open the binder. Color-coded. Apps printouts with highlighted zoning changes. QR codes linking to city data. She looked Victor in the eye. "Sign that deal, and you won't just lose money. You'll bury your company in lawsuits." She stepped back, and just like that, she was gone. The glass door hissed shut behind her, leaving 14 executives in stunned silence, and Victor Langston, dealmaker, titan, untouchable, staring down at a contract he no longer trusted. Outside, the skyline of Atlanta sparkled. Inside, something had shifted. A girl with no title, no degree, and no seat at the table had just cracked open a billion-dollar secret. And she'd done it with a binder and her mother's ID badge. Victor didn't speak for a long time, but when he did, it was only 4 words. "Clear the room, now." Victor didn't sleep that night, not because he was worried about the contract, but because he couldn't stop thinking about her, the girl in the hoodie, Zaria Cruz. 17, maybe 18. No college degree, no LinkedIn profile, no reason to be taken seriously in that room, except she had the truth. And that truth hit harder than any boardroom argument. At 1:17 a.m., Victor sat in his study, blinds drawn. The city lights outside blinking like questions. He stared at the binder she'd left. He hadn't even meant to take it with him, but when he'd walked out of the conference room, it was the only thing he could think to carry. The cover still read, "In blue pen, city land use do not ignore." He hadn't ignored it, not anymore. He flipped through the first page. Her notes weren't fancy, handwritten, some even in pencil, but accurate. She'd pulled data from the city's zoning commission, down to the GIS layer timestamps. Victor had paid consultants tens of thousands to compile less. Then, buried between the maps and permit copies, he found something else. A note. Just 3 lines. "My mom says truth is quiet, but it's still truth. Hope this helps." He read it twice, then 3 times. He leaned back in his leather chair, closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, didn't think like a CEO. He thought like someone who might have just been saved by a teenager with a library card and a moral compass. The next morning, he did something he hadn't done in over a decade. He went downstairs, not to his office, to the building cafeteria. It was 6:45 a.m., quiet, mostly staff and early maintenance workers grabbing coffee. He spotted her immediately, same hoodie, same braid. She sat across from an older woman, graying hair, dark eyes, soft face. Zaria was showing her something on a tablet. He approached slowly, cleared his throat. Zaria looked up. So did her mother. Their eyes said the same thing. "Why are you here?" "I'm not here as the CEO," Victor said. "I'm here to say thank you." Zaria blinked, then narrowed her eyes slightly. "You read the whole thing?" "I did. And? You were right." Her mother sat straighter. "I'm Elena Cruz," she said. Victor nodded. "I owe you both more than I can say." Elena smiled politely. Zaria didn't smile. She just watched him. Measured, like she still didn't trust him. Which, honestly, was fair. Victor sat down across from them. "May I?" Zaria nodded once. He placed the binder on the table. "Where did you learn to read zoning documents?" Zaria shrugged. "Public library. Also, the internet exists. And why do it?" She finally spoke with more than just one-word answers. "Because that land, Parcel 4C, is part of a green corridor. My school's environmental club worked to protect it 2 years ago. We planted trees there." Victor tilted his head. "You're in the club?" She shook her head. "I was at the protest. My cousin is the one who led it. Got arrested for civil disobedience." Victor raised an eyebrow. Elena interjected. "She's not trying to start trouble, sir. She's just observant." Zaria looked down. "I saw the paper in the copier tray. Recognized the lot number. That's all." Victor leaned forward. "You saw what no one else did." Zaria glanced at her mom. "I wasn't sure you'd listen." Victor exhaled. "I didn't listen to a lot of things I should have." He looked around the cafeteria, then back at her. "Would you be willing to talk more? Help my office verify everything?" Zaria hesitated. "I'm not a lawyer. I'm not asking for one." He paused. "I'm asking for someone who can see the cracks before the building falls." Zaria finally cracked a half smile, just barely. "I'll think about it." Victor nodded, and for the first time since yesterday morning he felt something unfamiliar. Relief. Real, cautious, but undeniable relief. He stood up, tucked the binder under his arm. "Thank you, Zaria." She didn't say anything, but as he turned to leave, she called after him. "Mr. Langston." He looked back. "There's more than just that lot." He froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you should probably check Parcel 4D too." Victor nodded slowly. Message received. This wasn't, or not by a long shot. Parcel 4D wasn't on Victor's radar, not until Zaria mentioned it. Now it was all he could think about. Before sunrise, he was already in his home office. Screens lit up like small suns, documents loading one by one. Zoning logs, land registry, tax, assessments. Victor was a CEO, not a city planner. But after 20 years in development, he knew how to smell rot. And something about Parcel 4D stank. The zoning map showed it as mixed use, just like 4C had been, but the footnotes told another story. 6 weeks ago, the parcel had been flagged for conditional review. Environmental audit pending. Victor dug deeper. He found a memo embedded in the city's planning archive. It referenced the Oakline Preservation Act, a statute designed to protect aging tree corridors from commercial encroachment. And guess where 4D sat? Right on the edge of the designated buffer zone. Victor exhaled, closed the window, and leaned back in his chair. This wasn't just about one deal. This was systemic. Later that morning, he walked into the strategy room at Kinross Ventures, alone. He didn't want assistance, didn't want distractions. He pulled the contract from the drawer. Parcel 4C, Parcel 4D, and Parcel 5A were bundled together. He scanned line 14 land clearances subject to zoning status. The phrase looked innocuous, until you realized it offered no safeguard, no contingency clause. It meant if the zoning shifted, even mid-project, the company bore all liability. He rubbed his temples. Either someone had overlooked that, or someone had buried it on purpose. Victor opened a new document, created a checklist. Verify zoning on 4C, 4D, 5A2. Cross-reference environmental flags 3. Audit development partner files 4. Recheck all legal sign-offs. He stared at the last item. Then, added a 5th. Talk to Annika. He didn't want to believe she knew, but trust was a currency, and his balance was dropping. At 8:12 a.m., he walked into her office. She was already on a call, voice smooth as always, posture perfect. When she saw him, she ended the call mid-sentence. "Victor," she said, standing. "You look like hell." "I didn't sleep." She smiled slightly. "Because of our teenage whistleblower?" He didn't answer that. He just placed a printed zoning map on her desk. "Parcel 4D, did you know it's under conditional review?" Annika didn't flinch, but her eyes changed, only for a second. Then she looked at the map and back at him. "I didn't know," she said, but her voice didn't match her eyes. Victor nodded slowly. "All right." He turned and left. Didn't press, didn't accuse. He wanted her to know he was watching. Back in his office, his assistant Theo knocked twice. Before entering, "Sir," he said, "you asked for the files on Blue Rock Development?" Victor nodded. Theo handed him a flash drive. "They're interesting." Victor raised an eyebrow. Theo hesitated. "Some of the permit paperwork. It's not signed by us." Victor paused. "Then who?" Theo swallowed. "Some signatures were. Cut and pasted. Metadata says they were inserted from an external file." Victor stared at him. "You sure?" Theo nodded. "I checked 3 times." Victor felt something inside him shift, a quiet click, like a lock opening or maybe breaking. He turned to his computer, plugged in the drive, opened the files. There it was, Parcel 4C 4D 5A, permits pushed through under a fast-track provision, signed, off by someone using a proxy name, Michael Reeve. Victor searched the name. No employee by that title had ever worked at Kinross. He checked Blue Rock's corporate registry. Reeve was listed as a project advisor, but no photo, no public records, just a P.O. box and a non-functional phone number. A ghost. Victor looked up at Theo. "Thank you," he said. Theo stood straighter. "I can keep digging." Victor nodded. "Do. Because now the silence had a shape, and he was ready to tear through it. Victor didn't cancel his meetings that day, but he didn't attend them either. He was too deep, too far down the rabbit hole of zoning codes, permits, and legal clauses that suddenly felt like landmines. It was noon when he called in a favor. Tara Mendel, an independent zoning attorney he hadn't spoken to in 5 years. They met once during a land dispute outside Decatur. She'd won the case in 3 days. She picked up on the second ring. "Langston," she said, "you only call when there's fire." Victor didn't argue. "I need eyes on a deal. Yours?" Almost was. They met 2 hours later in a private corner booth of a downtown coffee shop. Tara wore her usual look, no-nonsense gray blazer, hair in a knot, eyes sharper than her voice. Victor slid a folder across the table. Start with Parcel 4C. She flipped it open, didn't speak for a full minute, then she looked up. This was signed? Nearly. She nodded slowly. And Parcel 4D? He handed her a second set. She read faster this time. Her mouth tightened. These lots border the, East Line corridor? Victor nodded. Federal environmental overlay applies here. Tara pointed at a line of fine print on page 3. This clause contradicts the overlay. Victor leaned forward. You're saying this contract invalidates itself? I'm saying if you'd signed it, you'd be in litigation until retirement. He exhaled. Tara tapped the folder again. Who drafted this? Blue Rock Development. Tara raised an eyebrow. Do you trust them? I used to. Stop. Her voice was cold. You don't use to trust people like this. You either do or you don't. And I wouldn't trust anyone who submitted this trash. Victor sat back. You think it's deliberate? I think someone knew what they were doing, and they knew you wouldn't look deep enough. She pointed again. This language isn't sloppy, it's strategic. Victor rubbed his eyes, tired, angry, relieved. You think it's salvageable? Tara paused. If you want to preserve your reputation, yes. But if you want to go after them, you'll need more than contracts. Victor nodded. I have a name, Michael Reeve. Tara's pen paused mid-note. Say again? He repeated it. Her brows furrowed. I've seen that alias before. In a housing scam out of Jacksonville. Victor froze. Same tactics? Same playbook. She flipped through the documents again. This guy's a shadow operator. Layers. Everything behind shell firms and P.O. boxes. Victor's pulse quickened. I need you to verify everything quietly. Tara smiled faintly. You just handed me a puzzle. You know I can't resist that. Victor chuckled once, then serious again. If this blows up, I'm going to need a case strong enough for the city to act. Tara closed the folder. Then, I'll need access to every internal draft, emails, meeting minutes, anything that mentions Blue Rock or Reeve. You'll have it by morning. She stood. Then by next week, you'll have the truth. Victor watched her go, then pulled out his phone, scrolled to Zaria's last message. It was short, just said, "There's more under 5A. Trust me," he typed back. "Working on it. Stay safe." Then, almost without thinking, he added another line. You were right. Victor had built his career on knowing who was in the room, reading expressions, tracking silence. But this time, someone had been hiding in plain sight. He just hadn't looked hard enough. It started with a name buried in a calendar invite. A meeting. 3 weeks prior. Site feasibility overview, BR Dev. 10 attendees. 1 stood out, L. Ashcroft. Victor didn't recognize the name, didn't remember them in the meeting. He pinged Theo. Check this person. I need background by this afternoon. Theo nodded, already typing as he left the office. Victor turned back to the zoning reports. Parcel 5A was the next focus, and it didn't disappoint. The lot wasn't just near public infrastructure. It overlapped, with a proposed metro extension. That wasn't in any of the Blue Rock materials. Not one rendering, not one disclosure. Victor leaned forward, scanning the parcel boundaries. They had been sliced into smaller plots, subsections labeled 5A1 through 5A4. That alone wasn't suspicious, but one of them, 5A3, was shaded differently on an old municipal plan. He checked the legend, transit, corridor reservation, reserved, not for sale, not even touchable. And yet there it was, bundled in the proposal, signed and sealed. Victor pushed back from his desk, stood, paced. Who had authorized this? Who had packaged protected land into a commercial contract? And more importantly, who had known? An hour later, Theo returned, tablet in hand. Found her, he said. Victor raised an eyebrow. Her? Livia Ashcroft. She's not Kinross. She's with Stratwell Equity. Victor frowned. We haven't partnered with Stratwell in years. Theo nodded, but they recently acquired a minority stake in Blue Rock Development. Quietly. No press release, just an internal filing. Victor's stomach sank. Keep going. Livia's specialty is zoning arbitrage. Her name shows up. In at least 4 deals where public land was quietly redirected through fast-tracked approvals. Victor sat down, stared out the window, then back at Theo. Get me everything she's touched in the last 18 months. Theo didn't ask why. He just nodded and left. Later that evening, Victor reviewed the files. One name kept surfacing beside hers. Annika Shaw. Email threads, shared meeting invites, a co-authored internal memo about redevelopment streamlining. The same memo that approved Blue Rock's timeline. Victor closed the folder. He felt the cold bloom of betrayal. This wasn't passive oversight. This was coordination. Annika hadn't just vouched for the deal. She helped build it. She brought the players in, smoothed the path, kept Victor in the dark. And now he had proof. The curtain hadn't just slipped. It had dropped entirely. Victor Langston walked into the Kinross Ventures boardroom at 9 a.m. sharp, not as a man in charge, but as a man who had seen the storm and decided not to run from it. 12 directors sat around the polished mahogany table, suits crisp, faces unreadable. Annika Shaw was there too. Cool, poised, unbothered, at least on the surface. Victor didn't sit. He dropped a file onto the table. The sound echoed like a gavel. We won't be moving forward with the Blue Rock deal, he said. No preamble, no apology, just the truth. Murmurs rippled. One director leaned forward. Victor, with all due respect, this project's been in motion for 6 months. Victor nodded, and in those 6 months, several zoning violations were overlooked, possibly concealed. Eyes flicked around the table. He didn't stop. He opened the file, held up a zoning map. Parcel 4C and 4D fall under federal environmental protections. He pointed to another document. Parcel 5A overlaps with city infrastructure plans, specifically a proposed transit expansion corridor. Another director spoke. But we have permits? No, Victor interrupted. We have fabricated permits, copied signatures, and a proxy named Michael Reeve who doesn't exist in our system. Gasps. Annika's lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. Victor turned to her. Annika, care to explain the memo you co-authored with Livia Ashcroft? Her expression didn't falter. That memo passed legal review because you submitted a revision after midnight, without board knowledge. She opened her mouth, closed it. The silence did more damage than any words could. Victor let it hang, then looked at the rest of the room. This isn't just about a bad deal. This is about how we do business, how we define integrity. He stepped back from the table. I've initiated a full internal audit. All development partnerships from the last 18 months will be reviewed. One executive asked quietly, "What if this gets out?" Victor met his eyes. It should get out. That's how we protect what's left of our name. Another moment of stillness. Then, slowly, heads began to nod, one by one, until only Annika remained still. Victor gathered his papers, walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. There's a difference between a leader who signs deals and one who, stands up when they're wrong. He left without waiting for a response. Outside the boardroom, the hallway felt different, brighter, less burdened. Theo was waiting by the elevator. You did it, he said. Victor shook his head. No, I started it. He pressed the button. As the doors opened, he added, now we finish it. It didn't take long after the board meeting for the air to shift. There was a tension now, a hum beneath the walls of Kinross Ventures, a sense that something big was coming, and it wasn't just the audit, it was exposure, real consequences. Victor's office became a war room, documents piled high, encrypted emails pouring in from Terra, Theo running point on research, his phone buzzing non-stop. By Wednesday afternoon, the evidence stack was undeniable. Shell companies, rerouted contracts, hidden financing channels tied to Livia Ashcroft's holding firm, under a name no one at Kinross had ever seen. The deeper they looked, the more foul it became. One permit had been signed off by a zoning commissioner, now under federal investigation for campaign finance abuse. Another invoice, billed to Kinross, had been rerouted through an energy subcontractor that didn't actually exist. Victor sat alone in his office, late into the night. Just him, the skyline, and a truth too ugly to ignore. Blue Rock wasn't just unethical, it was criminal. And Annika? She had known, maybe not every detail, but enough to recommend the deal, enough to pressure Victor to fast-track the vote, enough to stay silent when Zaria spoke up. Victor poured himself a bourbon, didn't drink it, just stared at the glass. The silence in the room was heavy. He thought of Zaria, her binder, her mother's quiet pride, and he thought how close they came to being erased, how easily truth gets buried under profit. At 11:23 p.m., his phone lit up. A message from Tara. Found a routing slip. Livia transferred funds from ICE VR equity to a PAC supporting the same zoning commissioner. Victor exhaled slowly. It was all there now. The playbook, the payoffs, the pressure. He typed one line back. "Build the case." Tara replied instantly. "Already started." The next morning, Victor called a meeting, not with the board, but with the legal team. He handed them the folders. He said just one sentence: "Prepare for litigation." The warning came in a voicemail. No name, no callback number, just static and one sentence. She should have kept quiet. Victor played it twice, then deleted it. Not because he wasn't worried, but because he already knew what it meant. The vultures were circling. Not around him. Around Zaria and her mother. That night, Elena Cruz called. Her voice was calm but clipped. "There's been a car outside our building," she said. "2 nights now. Same make, same plates. Just parked. Engine running." Victor didn't ask questions. He called his head of security immediately. "I want a detail outside their residence. Now. Quiet. No uniforms." "Understood," the voice on the other end said. Zaria didn't know yet. Victor wasn't ready to tell her. Not until he could ensure her safety first. The next day, he visited her school, unannounced. He signed in as a guest and waited in the admin office. Zaria arrived 5 minutes later, backpack slung low, eyebrows raised. "You okay?" she asked. Victor nodded. "I am, but I need to talk to your mom." Zaria's face shifted. That same guarded look she gave him the first time they met. "What's going on?" "Let's just say not everyone's thrilled about you being right." They sat together on a bench near the parking lot. Students walked past, oblivious. Victor leaned forward. "There's protection outside your building now, just in case." Zaria swallowed. Didn't look away. "Is this because of the folder?" "It's because you exposed something people were paid to hide." She nodded once, then stood. "I want to help more." Victor looked up. "You already did more than most adults would." She didn't smile, just said, "So what's next?" "Next, we keep you safe, and we bring everything into the light." That evening, Victor met Elena at a diner 3 blocks. From her building, she looked tired, but firm. "I knew it might come to this," she said. "I used to work nights in city archives. I saw how paperwork disappeared." Victor sipped his coffee. "You taught her well." She taught herself. Elena pulled out a notebook. It was old, fraying at the edges. She slid it across the table. She's been documenting everything, even before the binder. Victor opened it. Pages of notes, maps, questions in the margins, names, dates. He closed it gently. "You've both done more for this city than most people in office." Elena gave a tired smile. "I just want her to be safe. She will be." Victor promised. But even as he said it, he knew safety was a moving target because when power is threatened, it bites back, and Zaria Cruz had just bitten first. It was supposed to be a quiet dinner, one of those charity events that rich people attend to feel righteous. White tablecloths, tiny desserts, overpolished conversation. Victor didn't want to be there, but showing face was part of the job. So he sat at table 9, listening to a city council member drone on about grant allocations, until he saw her. Across the room, Annika Shaw, in a pale gold dress, laughing softly at something whispered by the man beside her. Not just any man, Mark Tilson. Blue, Rock's original financial architect, supposedly out of the picture months ago. Victor stared. They weren't discussing business. They were leaning in, touching hands. Familiar, too familiar. His stomach turned, not from jealousy, but from betrayal. He excused himself from the table, stepped outside into the cold, pulled out his phone, snapped 2 discreet photos through the event glass, then turned and walked to his car. That night he sent the images to Tara. Subject line, "They were never on. Opposite sides." She replied within 5 minutes. Time to bring this to the ethics committee. But Victor wasn't ready. Not yet. He needed one more piece. One irrefutable thread that tied Annika to the manipulation. The next morning, he visited the company server. Logs, requested access to internal communications legally as CEO, and found them. Deleted emails, recovered drafts. A forwarded PDF labeled version C, final W, edits from L. The metadata? Created by Annika Shaw. Sent to Tilson, and blind copied to an unknown address. Victor sent it to Tara. "This is it," she replied instantly. "Chain of custody starts now." And with that, the betrayal wasn't just personal, it was prosecutable. Victor didn't go to the office that morning. He went to a coffee shop 5 blocks away, one of the few places in the city that still took cash and didn't ask for names. He sat in the back corner, phone face down, mind spinning. There was too much to hold now, too many threads. Tara was right, it wasn't just a broken deal, it was a network, a web built over time by people who knew how to stay invisible, until now. His tablet vibrated, message from Theo. Got something. Victor opened the file, a directory map, not of Kinross, but of Blue Rock internal hierarchy, affiliate partners, secondary holding groups. A name stood out, North Pine Consultancy. Victor searched it, no website, no LinkedIn, just a physical address. Listed under a nail salon on the west side, and a registered agent name Ashcroft L. He texted Tara, "Think we found their Dropbox." She replied in seconds, "Meet me at 3, bring everything." At 3:04 p.m., they sat across from each other in a private legal suite. Tara was already sorting evidence into piles. "This shell company," she said, tapping the document, "was used to root nearly $4.2 million. Half of it disappeared." Victor's jaw tightened. And the other half? Paid to lobbying firms. For what? For zoning variances. Victor exhaled. It was worse than he thought. They weren't just scamming my company. Tara nodded. They were warping city policy. That evening he called Zaria, updated her on what they'd found. She didn't say much, just one thing. "So it's bigger than just us." "Yes," Victor said. "Much bigger, and we're going to burn it down." The hearing room wasn't grand. No marble columns, no golden seal. Just fluorescent lights and a slightly scuffed linoleum floor. But to Victor Langston, it might as well have been a courtroom. Tara stood beside him, calm, composed, a folder thick, with evidence under her arm. The city's ethics commission sat across from them. 5 members, 3 men, 2 women, all silent, waiting. Victor cleared his throat. "I'm here today because this city almost signed away its future." He didn't read from notes, he didn't need to. He spoke like a man who had lived every word. "This wasn't just a bad contract," he continued. "It was a machine, designed to redirect public land, to enrich a few while bankrupting the rest." Tara handed the commission copies of the files, each page labeled, sourced, time-stamped. The chairwoman adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Langston, are you accusing Blue Rock Development of criminal fraud?" "Yes." "And others?" Victor nodded. "Several known associates, and one of our own." He turned slightly, looked directly at Annika Shaw. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stared back, expression unreadable. Victor went on. Shell companies, lobbying payoffs, forged zoning approvals, all hidden in plain sight. The commission asked questions, clarified dates, pressed on email chains. Tara responded with precision, every claim backed by receipts. At the end, the chairwoman spoke. Again, do you believe this compromises Kinross Ventures as a firm? Victor paused, then said clearly, no. It nearly did. But we're cleaning house, and this hearing is part of that process. The commission recessed for review. Victor stepped into the hallway, shoulders stiff, hands in pockets. Tara leaned over. You did good. I told the truth. That's rare in this building. A few minutes later, they were called back in. The chairwoman delivered the verdict. All development on parcels 4C, 4D, and 5A frozen. Pending investigation. All associated contracts voided. Annika Shaw referred for separate legal review. Blue Rock, under full audit. Victor didn't smile. He just nodded, once, then walked out. Zaria was waiting near the exit. She looked up, raised an eyebrow. Well, it's starting, he said, finally. She offered a small smile. I brought you something. She handed him a binder, her old one, the first one, the one with the handwritten title. Victor took it gently. Still believe in this fight? He asked. Zaria shrugged, more than ever. And together, they stepped out into the light. Spring arrived in Atlanta like a long-awaited apology. Warm winds, late sunsets, and a silence in the air that felt less like stillness and more like clarity. Victor Langston stood in the newly painted lobby of Kinross Ventures. A new logo hung on the wall. Brighter, simpler. It didn't just symbolize a company, it reflected a restart. Behind him, glass doors opened. A tour group stepped through. High school students. One of them was Zaria. No hoodie this time. She wore a badge, Kinross Urban. Initiative. Research intern. Victor smiled. She noticed him, nodded. Didn't need to say a word. She was home. Upstairs. The 18th floor had been converted. What used to be a closed-off executive suite was now an open lab. Maps lined the walls. Data dashboards tracked community feedback, and a whiteboard bore the name of the new division. The Cruise Initiative. Zaria's idea. Victor had just given it the name. City officials visited weekly now, not with deals, with questions, advice, seeking help, not offering favors, and Kinross helped, quietly, relentlessly, rebuilding what had nearly crumbled. At noon that day, Victor stood before a small crowd in the Civic Center. Reporters, community leaders, students. Tara beside him. He held up a slim black binder. The original, Zaria's. This, he said, is what integrity looks like. He didn't talk long. He didn't need to. Afterward, he found Elena Cruz in the front row. She hugged him, then whispered, "Thank you for seeing her." He replied, "She saw all of us first." Later that night, Victor returned to his office, poured one glass of bourbon, finally took a sip, then opened a drawer. Inside was a new folder, silver embossed. It read, Cruise Urban Fellowship, EST 2024. He placed it beside Zaria's original binder, looked out the window, and whispered to the city that nearly lost its voice, "We're still here, and we're not done." Not all heroes wear suits. Some carry cafeteria trays, some ride the bus home from school, and some read zoning codes because something just doesn't feel right. Zaria Cruz didn't set out to become a symbol. She just refused to stay silent, and because of that, a company changed, a city was protected, and power was reminded that truth, even whispered, can still roar. If this story moved you, share it. Let the world know that courage still counts, and that sometimes the ones we overlook are the ones who save us. Until next time, stay aware, stay loud, stay kind,